Hi everyone. Let's start our Aeon Vergil secret message from where we left yesterday. So let's resume. I guess we need to start from here. So we need to start this series. Nisanders associates it with the Genesis story, the implicit theme of the war between the sexes. So let's start with the first basis of the series. Sorry. Okay. So let's read. Where did Nisanders get this idea? The story was treated by a number of tragic, lyric, and cosmic poets of the 6th and 5th century BCE. The earliest source we know for a tale about a snake threatening man's immortality in the Babylonian epic Gilgamesh, predating Lysander by a millennium or more, in which the hero, while taking a dip in a pool, has a plant called Man Becomes Young in Old Age, stolen from him by a snake. There was a plenty of cross-fertilizations among the culture of ancient Greek, Rome, Egypt, and the Levant. The Bible itself, especially the story about the early world, contained much recycled material. So it would be claiming too much to say that Lysander could only have derived his deceitful talking snake directly or exclusively from the Jews. So this passage is talking about from where the idea, the snake story, Lysander gets. So it's a description about from where the Lysanders, about snakes, Lysander gets. The origin of snake story. So what we can take, what is this passage is basically saying that the first line says that this story was treated by a number of tragics, lyrics, comic poets of the 6th and 5th century BCE, that the story was taken by the Lysander is belongs to the tragics and lyrics and the comic poet from the 6th and 5th century BCE. The earlier source we know for a tale about the snake taunting man's immorality is the Babylonian epic Gilgamesh, predating Lysander by millenniums of more, in which the hero, while taking a dip in a pool, has a plant called Man Become Young in Old Age stolen from him by a snake. So there is a story from a Babylonian epic that the story that the hero, not a king, the hero is in that story in Babylonian epic Babylonian story says that the hero, while dipping in a pool, a snake stole a plant from him, which is called Man Become Young in Old Age. That plant is stolen by the snake. And what the next line says that there was a plenty of cross fertilization among the culture of ancient Greek, Rome, Egypt, and the Levants. The Bible itself, especially the story about the early world, contained much recycled material. It says that in earlier Greek, Rome, Egypt, and the Levant, there is a lots of stories about cross fertilization among these cultures. So let's see. Even the Bible, the about the cross fertilization, it's also mentioned in the Bible itself. It's a story about the early world where people use recycled materials. So let's read the second next line. So it would be claiming too much to say that Lysander could only have derived his deceitful talking snakes directly or exclusively from Jews. It's all the story of the Jews. So the title of this whole passage is from where the snake stories came. So the first is in 16 from the poem Tragics and the comic poems from 6th and 5th century. from 6th and 5th century. I don't know why my mouse is not working today. And the letter word is from Babylonian epic, where a story that a hero has taken while taking a deep plant is stolen by snake, which called a man becomes young in old age. And the cross-fertilizations culture among Greek, Rome, Egypt, and the Levant that we all can take from here. So let's moving toward the next. Sorry. Toward the next species. So, nevertheless, one feature of Nisander's version associates it more particularly with the Genesis story, the implicit theme of the war between the sexes, since Greek andros means not just human but male human, as opposed the unisex anthropos, Nicandrus, may also suggest the victory of a woman over a man. In a Genesis 3, God pronounced judgment upon the serpents and the woman who caused man to fall. So let's see what that Genesis 3 have. The Lord God said to serpents, because you have done this, cursed are you above all cattle, and above all wild animal, upon your belly you shall go. Dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. So this is the descriptions, or this is the pronouns given by God in the Genesis 3. First is for the men, and the second one is for the women. And for the men, what he says that because you have done this, cursed are you above all cattle and above all wild animals. Upon your belly you shall go, and dust you shall eat all the days of your life. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heels. So he just is just cursing the men that because of your sins, because whatever you have done, the God curse you that you are above all the cattle and all the wild animals. But he's putting enmity between a woman and him. So let's see what he says to women that I will be greatly multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Yet your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. He said that even if I multiply your pain in bearing a child bearing and upbringing of that children, but still your desire is for your husband, and he always rules over you. And let's see what letter he says that we can say what the whole passage what we can take from here is that to what judgment, what pronounced judgments God given to men and women, and from there we can just take some points from here. Is that's it, means there is nothing more we can take, but just a summary of that these two lines, last two lines, where he put the enmity between men and himself. And this last line, he shall bruise your head and you shall bruise his heels. And for women, he said that your desire shall be your husband, and he shall rule over you. So let's moving toward the next species. Nisander's dipsis is strongly associated with a female viper, who represent both pain, death, in fact, in childbearing, and a dysfunctional relationship with her husband, in which she is dominatrix. Furthermore, the symptoms of dipsis, bite, fever, parching thirst, and drinking until the fluid explodes out of one's navel and sound suspiciously similar to those of love-seeking depicted by the Roman author. So what here author is trying to say that Nisander's dipsis is strongly associated with female viper. That whatever the description of the dipsis given by the Nisander, which is strongly associated with the female viper's snake, which mentions in above paragraphs, that both they represent the pain, but they have a dysfunction relationship with their husbands, means the male. And And furthermore, it says that the symptoms of the typhus bite, fever, parching, thirst, and drinking until the fluid explodes, is the symbol of the love sickness depicted by the Roman authors. That both are similar, Dispis and the female viper, both have the same effect, which is a love sickness. So let's moving toward the next species. The coupling of viper and dispis, especially right after the snake call the female, suggested that Lysander was allowed to the relationship between the fall of men and the war between the sexes. Though there are obviously some differences, it is plausible to suppose a genetic connection with the Genesis episode. The supremely learned poet would surely have been interested in and eager to show off his knowledge of this memorable Jewish story, available in his day in Greek translation, in which talking snakes play a leading role. So here is author is saying the situation where there is a alert in relationship between the fall of a man and the war between the sexes. There are even some differences which is supposed to be genetic connection with the Genesis episodes. That we can take from here is that some differences in no. The title of this species is the relationship between the fall of men and the war between the sexes. So, and what we can take from here is that obviously some differences. It is plausible to support a genetic connection with the Genesis episode. That we can take from here is and nothing as for as important for us. It's moving toward the another pieces. In my article on original Aeon and Vergil's Orpheus and Eurydice episode in the Georgic, my starting point was the acrostic Ishia it. Ishia says, in the context of a woman dying by snake bite, Orpheus' new bride Eurydice, fleeing from her would-be rapist Aristeus, to whom the Ishak-like prophet Proteus is recounting the tale, encounter a huge water snake. Several cue words point to the huge acrostic which lies before feet of hexameter and along the bank of the poem. So it's about the poem which author is trying to say that when his wife is died because of the snake bite and how is that happened, that's his description in this poem. And I don't know we are able to understand because that is not written in our English language. So that's nothing for us. Moving towards the explanation of that poem. So let's read. She ended while she was flying you headlong by the stream. A girl destined to die did not see a escrotic begin hug water snake before her feet guarding the banks in the high grass, but her sister chorus of Dryad filled the high mountain with a wail, the pick of Rhodope wept in high Pangaea, and the material land of Reshes and the Getae and the Hebrus and the Actic Oritia. This whole even is not in English, but still I'm reading. Orpheus himself, solacing his miserable love on a hollow lyre, kept singing you, escrotics in sweet wife, you to himself, on the lonely shore, you would be coming, you with a departing day. So it's a whole story which depicted the incidents happened, how his wife died by the biting of snakes. Why she is not able to saw that snake, but that snake is biting. It's just a call and destiny. This poem suggesting that. So let's moving toward the next passage. I argued that Eurydice, the girl destined to die, is a kind of Eve figure, killed by a snake and mourned by universal nature. What I did not know then, but came to realize thanks to another chance conversations, this time with Michael Reeve about his article A Rejuvenated Snake 1996 to 97, is that Virgil's biblical acrostic alludes to Nisander's, that is, Virgil was not only recalling the Genesis episode that brought death into the world, but recalling it through the lenses of Greek author, who did the same and expecting at least some of his learned reader to get both allusions. While this short of a vendor reference is a common for highly literate classical author, the fact that Bible is involved shed new light on the highway between Athens and Jerusalem, suggesting that ancient non-Jewish leaders access to and interest in the Septuagint may have been far greater than in commonly supposed. So it just this passage says that the girl destined to die. What its exact meaning? It says that it's a that it's an episode, Genesis episode that brought the death into the world, but recalling it through the lenses of Greek author, where they say that expecting a list of some of sorry, not we can say. It says that the death of the girl is not just not saying that it's an incident, but it's symbolized that it was is a nature to kill the person. So, what it's an episode which brought death into the world. So, author is saying that they mentioned that the point of view of death of that girl is different according to the different authors from the different genre, from the different time periods. So, let's moving toward the next paragraph. A characteristic feature of window reference to the correction of one's precedent, and Virgil's is no exception. For instance, he added the water that the Greek poet strangely omit. Why as would the ash have asked the disciples to help him with his thirst, unless the snake were as Virgil's as it? Guarding the bank, Virgil's correct the name as well, calling his water guarding snake Hydrus, from the Greek for water, the opposite of despair, thirsty, like Nisander and the Bible would is implicitly depicted a battle of the sexes, but he inverted the role and assigned the blame to men. Eurydice died once fleeing from a rapist, and again when the Orpheus makes the fatal mistake of looking back as he is leading her out of the underworld. So this the author is saying that why the water used here, what is symbolized in the whole story. The title of this passage is the symbol water, what water symbolize. So what we can take from here is that the first it says that, for instance, he added the water that the Greek poet strangely omit. Why else would the ash have asked the Disciples to help him with his thirst unless the snake were as versatile as it, guarding the bank? So it says that why that person is taking help from the snake who is already guarding that bank. Then why that snakes allow someone when that person is guarding that bank or that river? Why that person allow some? Why that snake allow someone to just to drink water from it? Because that person is charged of responsibility. That's why that snakes bite. So it's not that snake's fault. That kind of messes. This says that letter. Let's see what it has. Vergil's correct the name as well, calling his water guarding snake Hydrus from the Greek of water for water, the opposite of despair, thirsty, like Nisander, and the Bible word is implicit depicted a battle of the sexes, but he inverted the role and assigned the blame to men. He said that Vergil's inverted the role and assigned the blame to men. He's blaming the men itself that it's your fault why you're coming near to the bank and drinking the water from them. That's not the fault of snake that bites you. That's your fault. The Eurydice dies once flying for a rapist, and again when Euphraios makes the fatal mistake of looking back as he's leading her out of the underworld. So he said that the Eurydice, which the story who is died by the bite of the snake, she already died when she was raped. But again, it's the mistake of that persons who bring her to the underworld. Let's moving toward the next passage. Vergils and Nisander show both similarities and differences in their divine reward and punishments. In Nisander's story, the god of sky gives humankind a chance at eternal youth as a reward for your tackling on Prometheus, stealer of fire. In Vergil's, the god of the underworld gives a human a chance to escape from his realm temporarily as a reward for Orpheus' transcendently beautiful song. The stories diverse in that Nisander's men, weary from carrying the precious gift, entrusts it to the back of the foolish ass, who become a potent symbol of appetite in the conflict with rational intelligence. Yet there is a certain similarity to Orpheus nonetheless, emotionally wearing by having Eurydice as his back. He foolishly and irrationally gratifies his desire to see her rather than delaying his gratification so as to save her. So here the author is trying to say that there is a similarities and differences between the Vergil and Nisander's theory, which is both a divine reward and a punishment. So what Nisander's story tells that the god of sky gives humankind a chance to eternal youth as a reward for out-tattling on Prometheus' stealer fire. Nisander's story tells that the god has of sky gives the human kind a chance of eternal youth, and you can be the young as you want. And what Vergil's story says that in Vergil's, the god of the underworld gives a human a chance to escape from his realm temporarily as a reward of offer him some transcendently beautiful song. So, in Virgil's story says that here the god of underworld gave a chance to human beings to escape from his danger or his temporary rewards. Escape from a temporary reward. So, focus on the long-term rewards. This story diverges in the Nisander's men weary from the carrying a precious gift entrusted to the back of the foolish ass, who become a potent symbol of appetite in conflict with rational intelligence. Yet there is a certain similarity, Orpheus nonetheless. So in Nisander's story, and what is the common between Nisander and Virgil's stories? So in Nisander's story, of a man wearying from carrying the precious gift entrusted it to the back of the foolish ash, which symbol of appetite in conflict with rational intelligence, and the same story in Vergil's, who is about Orpheus, is it that he's more emotionally weird by having Eurydice at his back. He foolishly, irrational gratify a desire to see her rather than delaying his gratification so as to save her. He's just looking at her, seeing her beauty, but not able to save her from that danger. So let's moving toward the next pieces. I have argued that the story spanned by Nisander's signature serpent alluded to the biblical fall, and that Vergil in his Orpheus and Eurydice episode incorporate both Nisander and the Bible, signally the allusion with a biblical acrostics of his own. Isha it, but that leaves a final question. What is the disputes in the particular the start of Nisander's fall story, since all snakes renew their youth by shedding their skins? So this passage is saying that what is the actual answer of the questions? That is, the all snakes renew their youth by shedding their skins. That it's an illusions given in the Bible and in the Sandal stories. What we can just depict from here is that in this story where all the snakes we can which is a false story we can say that all the snakes renew their youth by shedding their skins, means by looking young all the snakes renew themselves by shedding their skins, old skins. So what that we can say that what human are learn from this. So let's moving toward the next species. Lysander's association of the fall with the unscalable thirst which we attempt to satisfy in a way that leads to our destruction shows his insight into both the biblical narrative and the nature of evil. In the Jewish and Christian understanding, the constant result of our primordial separation from God, brought about by a malicious serpent, is an insatiable yearning for that lost communion, with the last prophets frequently describing a thirsty for God as a deer long for a stream of water so long for you, O God. God promises that this thirst will be quenched. How everyone who thirsts comes to the water, but there one exception. In Edenic vision of God's holy mountain, the wolf and the lamb will feed together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox, but dust will be serpent's food. The serpent is the only animal left out of the party, just as God had promised in Genesis. Just shall you eat all the day of your life. This says that you have to control your desire. The whole narrative says that what God's message through this story, what we can understand from this story, it says that we attempt to satisfy in a way that lead our destruction, shows his insight into both the biblical narrative and the nature of evil. He says that everything have a limit. You can't do things limitless without any imagination out of your boundary. To satisfy yourself, if you want to satisfy yourself too much, then you lead to your own destruction. So that's the story we have. And one more line you can take a meaning from is the God had promised in Genesis that dust shall you eat all the day of your life. That you have to control your desire, otherwise it destroy whole your life. Let's moving toward the another series, which is the last series of this essay. Classical texts are enmeshed in a web of relationship that can surprise and invigorate even after thousands of years. So let's see what this passage hold for us. The first passage is that the perpetual thirst of Nisander's dispers is a logical consequence of that unsatisfying diet. The dispers may be functionally immortal, but only at the price of eternal misery. Imparting torturous thirst to others does not actually bring the beast any relief. Like the biblical serpent, its motivation is pure malice. As Saint Ambrose declared, no one ever healed himself by hurting another. In the present age of electronic venom, absorbing that lesson from Nisander's ideological tale could help us all. So what this passage is saying that what logic we can comprehend from the Nisander's disputes is that to be functionally immortal, it costs you the price of eternal misery. Imparting torturous thirst to other does not actually bring the beast any relief. Means if you're just giving the examples for your desire, if you're torturing someone for your peace, you're not at the end at all getting peace from it by torturing someone. Like in the same case of the biblical serpents, where its motivation is pure malice, just torturing others. So no one ever healed himself by hurting another. That we can take from here is that you can't get anything by hurting others. Another reward of humanity's great conversation is the joy of seeing familiar word borrow the serpent's power to become young in old age. It has simply never occurred to me that reading vertically might enhance my understanding of the horizontal narrative. Discovering these new dimensions in Vergil's and other ancient poets has both increased my appreciation of their genius and emphasized the benefit of learning to the original language. Since acrostics vanish completely in translations, on the other hand, the potential importance of Jewish text for the classical author is something that should be received more attention from all the readers, scholars, and students alike. So, what this says that what is passage trying to say that to become a young in old age, you need to go through all these discoveries, all these important texts to just make your understanding more authentic. So what we can take from it is that the Virgil and the other ancient poet has both increased appreciations by their geniusness and the benefit of learning the original language. that there is a potential importance in the Jewish texts. And there is a lot new dimension the Vergils and other ancient poetics. So we must go through that to increase our dimension of the thinking. So let's end with the next last passage of this Aeon. As Italo Calvino observed, a classics is a book that has never finished saying what it has to say. Virgil was not only reading the Bible but reading it through the eye of the Greek author who used the biblical story to enrich his own, and both author left vertical clue those significance is only now coming to light. In tracing the biblical serpent's acrostic tale, we see how the classical texts are enmeshed in a dense web of relationship that can surprise and invigorate us. Even after the thousands of years, the eternally thirsty snake may symbolize evil's contagions and the victory over a man, but it can also symbolize the contagious, unquenchable thirst of the humanities and human for the truth and beauty ever ancient, ever new. So, this passage say that whatever the Virgil's reading in the Bible, but he's not reading the Bible as it is a Bible, but he's reading through the eye of the Greek author. What that story depicts him, what that story trying to tell him, what actually the life is, what we can just comprehend from the story, and it's about the relationship. It says that, like a thirsty snake, still the people are here, which symbolize the evil contagions, a victory over a man that the people have, the men, especially men, don't have a control over themselves. They are still hunger, thirsty about the beauty. So with that, I'm just ending the video here. Hope you guys like it. Have a great day. See you with another Aeon talk.